That's why that one must not be moved. Otherwise, you are going to bring a new thing which is not anywhere in the world. Immediately you temper with that national the issue of definition, then for others work has to know from this whole thing, because we cannot be part of that type of defilement. We cannot be alive seeing a misnomer take place in our time. What we can always do is not to temper with the definition, but to sort out the administrative aspects, Mr. Chairman, on whether that fund falls either under Ministry of Finance or gender or labor, but the definition cannot be tempered. That's why, Mr. Chairman, it's important that first of all we don't temper with the definition, but secondly, as whether the function of social security falls under finance or labor, we can resolve it by having a meeting, as my colleague has presented with his excess. What we can be able to explain to him, because what we think is that the information that his excess is having is biased, because he has not got time to listen to the other side. Yes. We would rather have a discussion with him, yes, and then according to his wisdom, if after explaining to him and all that, he cannot be, I mean, he still says no, according to his wisdom, should be the answer, then we shall get ready to go. But when we are sure that we have listened, also explained to our side, and he has listened and we have realized that our side, the wisdom is not there, but we must explain the president. Like Mr. Chairman, the point I wanted to make at the issue of the president, but also the fact that that definition, if we temper with it, we shall have lost the whole fund. We rather do the definition, but then sort out other matters, because in any case, whether the definition is misappropriate, the point I'm making is that whether we need the definition as Minister of Social Security, we can still have the Minister of Finance or labor, whatever we shall have to present over this one, but not to temper with the whole definition of that definition. Thank you very much.
I know Mr. Swamp exactly the question. I want to give the information so that you get out.
Thank you, Chair. For me, as we are representing the masses workers, I still support the two members that we need an explanation and a very good justification from the HE as to why he prefers this fund to be transferred to Ministry of Finance rather than gender. Because to my common understanding, I know this fund is not related to anything from government other than the private sector that contributes to this money. So I'm not convinced at all until the president does so.
Information, Chair. Information, Self-Finance Committee, Chair of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, they are part of the Minister of Gender has clearly stated why it was okay for the fund to remain under the responsibility of the Minister of Finance. Chair, why the Speaker quickly asked us to consider ourselves and handle this bill because of the heat outbreak. I feel, yes, it is important for us to meet HE. The stakeholders here can request for his to meet him and we shall join him. But that should not derail us from processing this law.
Where are you going?
Commissioner, I gave you your time. Just wait. Chair, we are not the final persons to decide on this law. After processing it in the committee, we are going to take to the floor of Parliament, where there are bigger people who represent by the workers members here. You're not the only people who represent workers. We also have workers in our constituency.
Order.
So we are all interested.
Order. You see, I want to honorable member to explain to me whether he has a constituency called Honorable Chair, when we are discussing here, let's not be misinformed and then we pursue the opposite
Before my teacher comes, you know why the fund was placed in Minister of Finance? Honorable one of us where you remember the Vijanga report when Makoko went in exile. It's workers who complain that the fund, the way how it's managed and invested, it does not get its own benefits. Maximum committee of Bujanga. Remember the committee Bujanga report. And Parliament will now accept that because of the investment aspect of the fund, it must be monitored by the Minister of Finance. And that's why we moved it from gender and we took it to the Minister of Finance. Because investment, that investment aspect. When you read at the bill amending you want, it says National Social Security Fund. How is the policy of government on fund? The policies of government is run by Minister of Finance on fund. That's why the minister is saying that please, if it's a fund aspect to be invested by microeconomic multiplier effects, it must be dealt with finance. Because all the funds created, even the laws you create, are managed by Minister of Finance. So Parliament pronounced itself a long time before that this must be
we have been here, this is the third time we're engaging in this debate. Initially we had procedural issues, and all the procedural concerns were addressed by the tabling of the President's letter in this room, and also the Speaker acknowledging receipt of the letter and advising on the way forward. Mr. Chairman, the two ministers are here. They represent the President. One time I told the President, he asked me why I was not informing him about what I was doing. Then I replied to him that, sir, when I speak to your minister, I have spoken to you. In this regard, we could maybe say this letter is fake. Let us confirm it with the President. But that is not the case, because the Speaker herself has acknowledged this letter, and also the ministers in this room have also acknowledged. What is the letter saying? The letter is saying, substantially, Nssf is a large fund with a lot of money, and it should be managed by people with expertise in managing the economy. And these are at the Ministry of Finance. The another point he's making is saying that this double reporting of finance and gender will bring back and forth, and this will constrain decision making. He doesn't also agree with that, and he advises that Parliament should look into, with the view of defining the minister as a minister responsible for finance. So I'm just wondering, meeting the President is all right, but if you say that this process stays until when we have met with the President over his letter, I cannot understand. Because this committee has capacity to collect submission from stakeholders and make a decision. And Mr. Chairman, for me, I am of the view that we accept the submissions the two ministers have made, and also the guidance from the Speaker, and we'll be able to move forward.
Ministers, I had wanted to raise a particular problem. We have stated the government position very clearly. You have the President's letter, which is clear and unambiguous. Now, which is clear and unambiguous, and we must abide by it. Now, this debate on what you should do, whether to see the President, to seek clarification, whether to present your views, which doesn't favor his position, we should be saved from this debate.
Yes.
Because we can't contribute anything.
Okay.
So for us.
Maybe I think as the chair of finance has said, another critical component for members who are not on the Nssf. The president further states in his letter that we should have copies that there will be a board.
That mask is not accepted. It's medical.
And that board it's already praised the healthy workers, but it's acceptable. And this board will have a representation
Of workers.
have a representation of Ministry of Gender and everybody. And also the understanding that the Nssf plays an important role in labor issues, but it's not equal to labor issues. There are other issues that are handled by Ministry of Labor. You have been accused that you are office, you have been restricted, issues of unemployment, all those. But in terms of managing the 7 trillion or 14 trillion, which is a part and parcel of the savings within the country, the president says that should be done by people who have expertise, both in Ministry of Finance. I think that is the argument. But as my colleague said, the letter of the president is very clear, and we have presented these views, and we are not going even to change, even if it's a comma. And we pray that maybe from the last we can leave you.
Minister, I accept information.
Chair, just clarification.
Yes.
I agree with you. I'm not going to oppose the rate of His Excellency. There's only clarification I'm seeking is that he said this money should go to the Ministry of Finance, where we have expertise in handling monies. And my colleague, Honorable Kutana, when this money shifted into finance, was a very good expertise in handling the finance. Now he's in labor. The same person to other.
When it comes, they will go.
I think there is an institution of Ministry of Finance, and there are political supervisors who come and go, but the institution of finance, as described by law, the treasury, the Bank of Uganda, the funds that are managed by all over the country. All over the country.
You are cracking a joke.
Clarification, Honorable Minister. Clarification. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister and the Chair. Honorable Minister, I think you are aware under your ministry, there is an institution called RUBRA that is supposed to supervise all pension schemes.
To regulate.
And Nssf is one of the pension schemes. So now who is going to regulate who? If the Nssf is transferred to the Ministry of Finance, now becomes either computed of RUBRA, what is it exactly? For God's sake. For me, the Ministry of Finance had all mandate and expertise through RUBRA, supervise National Social Security Fund, while in the labor and manage the fund and everything. And even take decisions on the investment. So for God's sake, I don't see why, if there is no irritation, I don't see why that Nssf should work well.
Minister, you accept information from Gorobi and Margaret.
And then I was Margaret. Gentleman, the gentleman lady is here.
Okay, now you come inside.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. And to me, I thank the Minister of Finance for giving way. Chair, I think there is a problem. We are not saying that finance has not been having boards. You have been appointing the board. We are aware. But I think where the problem also started, you sat in cabinet and agreed that the Minister of Labour should bring the Nssf amendment bill, and it was read on the floor first time. If you sit almost every Monday, why didn't you advise so that you can be the one to read it and you set someone. So I think that's where the confusion also starts, because it should have been Ministry of Finance first, and then we would come to follow up our money, maybe to know what's happening. But if the Ministry of Labour that did it, then I think that also creates a misunderstanding. So if it doesn't matter, and you know, Mr. Kapoza, you know that you had already changed so many years ago as you were telling us, then why are we wasting time? You should have continued with your work, and then maybe we'd be spectators by now. But otherwise, if we are to give our sentiments, we are not happy with what's happening. That's why it's important. Someone says it doesn't matter, but for us it matters, because also we need to hear it from the horse's mouth. You were able to meet him, but you don't want us to meet him. Why?
Procedure, Chair. Procedure, Chair. Procedure. I came before Honorable Kapoza. Put him to order. Procedure,
Mr. Chairman.
Chair, procedure. The minister bow. The minister can't just read the statement here and let him come back.
The secretariat is there.
Please give on good opportunity to ask the question.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry for coming late, but on the matter being discussed, originally I've been for finance, in charge of this sector. However, I'm realizing that there's a conflict of interest here. When we get Minister of Finance to head Nssf. Because you know that a big proportion of the resources under Nssf are in the hands of government. In fact, that's what constitutes a big proportion, the biggest proportion of our debt stock, domestic debt stock. It's held by the government, and particularly the Ministry of Finance. Now, the person you are borrowing from is now under your portfolio. You realize that there's a conflict of interest there because you can do anything, you know. So I'm beginning to agree with the view that these laborers get in charge of their fund. Given that we now have UPRA. Before, during the days of Bakoko, we don't have UPRA. Now UPRA is in place, operate with a clear institutional legal framework governing it. And in fact, we have been talking about liberalizing the sector. I do not see any reason now why we should not leave this Ministry of Gender to be in charge of this. Because all along, you know, before this Nssf was taken out to Ministry of Finance, Labour used to be a very strong ministry. It was taken away from them. You have taken actually away the heart of the ministry. If I can answer this and go.
So, Minister, will you be kind enough to accept one word from Chirolia and Tunisia?
We still finish.
Honorable, could you put
So Mr. Chairman, knowing that you're sitting on a huge resource coming from Nssf, you can begin to dictate matters if you continue to become the one who's in charge of Nssf. Because you borrowed from them, you can choose not to pay. You know? So in view of these risks associated with this, I want to agree that this fund is taken back to the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development.
Yes. Chair.
Is that economically or politically? Chair, that's politics.
That's politics.
Minister, will you be kind enough to listen to one question from Chirolia?
The chairperson of the budget.
Thank you, Chair.
That's politics. You can't do anything.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, at times I get disappointed, and I know my disappointment is equally with the other members of Parliament. Some of these things, Chair, are in black and white. to begin with, I don't get surprised when the minister concurred with the session of the president, because the other is appointing authority tomorrow to close the job the moment he fights with the other party. But Chair, to be sincere, unless we want to close the Ministry of Gender, and unless we agree that Ministry of Gender is no longer relevant, it should not exist, and we do other things. But a simple scenario, I need to seek the attention of the two chairpersons before they write small changes to each other. The chair, if you are keeping my hen, which is laying eggs, but you have your children at home interested in eating the eggs, how safe am I that the eggs will be there, Chair? You are keeping my head, it's laying eggs, your children are interested in eggs. Really, how safe am I? So, Chair, finance is in charge of every money in this country. You don't need directly to be in charge of Nssf. You can be in charge of Nssf indirectly through any other body. But really, finance fighting to control Nssf, fighting to control this money of workers. Finance feels the money is controlling is not enough. You feel you need more. They feel what is going on the other side is still come to their pocket, even the pocket one of workers. No, we must be sincere. Let finance do what we mandated it to do. Leave the Ministry of Gender to also have something to control. Here, let us be sincere. This is money for workers. This is not money for treasury. For us, if we don't agree here, we shall just go there and mobilize. We shall even run away with the report. We shall not allow this thing to go to finance. Whether the letter came from the president or where, we shall do whatever it takes. Whether the report is there, run away with it, and make sure Nssf remains in agenda.
Run away with the report.
I think you can see things are not easy. So because it is up to members.
No, there shouldn't be.
Yes. To reconstruct his statement.
There is an point.
I'm sober.
Yeah, I know you are sober, but you are misleading us.
Running
We are
away
not
with the
talking
report.
about where the fund should be because of purposes of control. We are talking about where it should be for purposes of investment, for purposes of planning, for purposes of management, not about control, who controls what. And I want you to explain this. Ministry of Gender is not just about workers. There are so many other components of the department. There's about sage is there, people with disability, the elderly. So why
Finance is controlling my salary.
by virtue because
So can we mention
finance is part of the economy. It's part of the economy.
Chair, thank you. Honorable Minister, after listening to all what members are saying, and after also reading this bill, everywhere it talks about Minister of Finance. Can you, maybe within a few days, go and find a solution where you can make a small proposal where workers, the ministry is responsible for workers, can be captured within this bill so that members are comfortable that their ministry is part of this law. Because when you say you amend even the laws of social security fund, then workers are technically knocked out. They have no say. So my humble request, we agree with the letter from the president. We also agree, if you read through this bill, it talks about Ministry of Finance all over. But can you find a way of making workers be part of this bill? The main thing which was going to leave them here is the definition of Minister of Social Security. But now that's what you are proposing, that it should be changed to say Minister of Finance. So it becomes totally a financial institution. That is the
So let Minister give concluding remarks.
Okay, I just wanted
Then
to...
Minister be free to go.
Okay, thank you.
We shall discuss again later, members. Minister, please.
Okay. First, one I want to mention that the Minister of Finance wants pocket. I think that is breaking the parliamentary debate here in this committee. So the second point is the conflict of interest. I think, as I stated, if you look at the management of the fund, who really makes the decisions of the fund? It's the board. And the minister takes action on recommendation of the board. That's very, very important. And who is the composition of this board? The composition of this board, the most important people are the workers themselves. The workers themselves are the ones who actually make the decisions about the investments of this money. And then they recommend to the minister for approval. Honorable Chair of the budget, you should not get worried about the conflict of interest. Now, the conflict of interest will not be found in that sense, in my opinion. That because the Nssf is investing in the markets, therefore, because the banks are investing in the markets, and the Bank of Uganda is under Ministry of Finance, therefore the banks should not report to Bank of Uganda or Ministry of Finance. I think that is not the definition of conflict. It's not the definition of conflict. Yeah. The issue is how can the funds within the country be managed? And that's what the Constitution says. Let all the funds, let all the monies be because like this fund of Nssf, just a second, this money of Nssf is so critical that any single mistake about this, to correct it, you know, it can be costly. That's why you don't want to make a mistake. The moment you make a mistake about this fund, to correct that, that's why we are saying let us, as the President in his wisdom says, let us, the Constitution says, the funds are under Ministry of Finance, let it be done under Ministry of Finance. That's a decision of the President. But the issue of ill intention is really Minister.
You know, mistakes are made by everybody. And I think Ministry of Finance can also make mistakes. And it's well known for making several mistakes.
Yes,
audited. You cannot argue that audited than the Ministry of Finance.
It's banks.
It's audited. And the ministers we have in finance are not the best financial manager in this country. You know?
They are worse.
You cannot argue that. So I cannot buy your views at all. Mistakes can happen anyway. So we have managing this
just to add on that one, if you can see that if you can avoid something dangerous, it's better to avoid it than going into it well knowing. Anyway, the funds according to the Constitution are managed under Ministry of Finance. Okay? It is the one that manages investment. That's why the wisdom of the President. Lastly, if I can maybe make a last point, because there are so many things. The last point was on immigration.
It's about the investment, about the money, but this proposal came from you as a cabinet and put the function of investment as a finance. There was that consultation. And we had thought that was the best to have the two. This is Uganda labor, but to have any financial decision, Minister of Finance people. And we thought that was the best. But now for you are saying that they should take up all the issue, the labor, everything out of finance. And yet the Minister of Labor is also a cabinet minister. You are saying, we are going to say that the Minister of Finance is so against you compare the Minister of Labor. That the other ministers don't have the control of the president. If they ask any issues,
no, but I think when you look at it, if you look at the bill, and as you will be going through,
yes,
the bill talks about investments.
Yes.
The bill
Has
talks
nothing
about
to do with the workers.
Yes.
the bill talks about
Taxation.
taxation. The bill does not talk about when a worker has an issue is complaining.
No.
The bill is talking about this money which the worker
Yes.
has collected and put in the fund. How do I manage this fund?
Exactly.
It does not talk about if Margaret quarrels with the
Can I supplement you?
and works. No.
Can I
Those are done.
Thank you.
Can I supplement?
But when you save this money, how is it managed? How is it taxed?
Can I supplement you?
Minister,
You see, all these arguments, Honorable Minister is trying to tell your colleagues. For me, if I'm a saver in a nation, my core value
That's
is
enough.
how do I get the maximum returns on my investment. If I get somebody contracted to go in a stock exchange market, whereby my returns can be sold offshore, and my corporate rate goes high, it cannot be gender. It can be between Bank of Uganda and it can be Ministry of Finance. Why? Because the economic implications of that fund, it goes back to the fund who is managing it, not somebody who is controlling it.
Thanks very much.
Government will pay.
Honorable Kagoza, and I am just seeking clarification from my colleagues. You know, the purpose of this meeting is to harmonize our language. And that's why I'm seeking clarification. Honorable Minister, you are very much aware that before a bill comes to Parliament, we pass the principles. And I'm not aware you have to clarify to us if you amended the principles before this bill, which was giving the policy making Jenny got up. Secondly, you know, His Excellency has repeated it several times. He can write a letter, but ministers are there to advise. I don't know if there was an accuracy. Thirdly, Honorable Minister, when Honorable Gorobia was contributing, there is a scenario project. UBLA is not an old organization. Remember when UBLA was born. UBLA supervises more than 67 small social organizations. 67. UBLA gets more than 6 billion from Nssf per annum.
I know.
You get my point? We go slowly. UBLA is appointed by finance. Nssf is now appointed by finance. Now, finance has assured Nssf. On the composition of UBLA, the PS is a member. On the composition of Nssf, the PS is a member. Who supervises who? And where does that? You are talking of maximum return, Honorable Kagoza, of my investment, and I'm paying UBLA that amount. At the end of the day, where is my money?
Yeah, that's
how is it being utilized? No, we go slowly, and this is what I want the minister to clarify to us. So that's what we're explaining to our workers. We're in a good position to explain. And lastly, Honorable Minister, now that Nssf is shifting officially, legally to finance, do you still see the relevance of UBLA?
Chair, I wanted something to say before the Minister of Finance. Honorable Minister, you see, something is very interesting. Minister of Finance has been supervising and overseeing everything. And the colleagues say that the investment portion could be properly managed and monitored by Minister of Finance. And nobody has any problem with that. Having investment in the hands of finance. But telling me that finance really wants to take over the whole oversight role of Nssf really. Everything. That means that you want always to use this example that since finance is overseeing every investment and every man and every policy of Nssf, that involves private money because this is personal money, it's not government money. So, going forward, everything is now going into finance.
But can I ask some clarification from him? Through Mr. Chairman. Honorable Chivaja is saying finance is taking everything. I wish to invite you to this bill clause by clause and tell the committee which clause can finance not take.
Yeah, because when I watch back, just
let me answer.
If I might conclude,
Let me answer. Because me, I will answer using the saying from my mother language. If I come to court and complain that Mr. Sandiso took my wife, you don't tell me that in the morning between 9 and immediately the wife digs in Kibara's garden. But at night when it comes to sleeping, she sleeps at Waiswa's place. Whose wife is that? She's sleeping at Waiswa's place, but she's digging in my garden. So the important thing is that defines the wife.
I think for chairs.
So you are taking the whole thing now. You are making us the
No, I think
Chair, let me finance. Let me conclude. Honorable Chair, if you read the letter from the Minister of Gender, for those who studied the undertones, the Minister of Gender has written that this is the government position. You get it? It's not that he's interested in having this thing go, but the directive of the president and it's a government position, he has no option.
Who said?
The letter is saying so. Yes. Don't get worried. You have your job.